What stopping was never going to fix a note before reading. This piece references a past suicide attempt, briefly and in context. If now isn't the right time, come back when it is. The first time I stopped smoking, I nearly died. Not from withdrawal, from what was underneath it. Without the weed, I had nothing between me and my own internal experience. Within 6 weeks, I had swapped it for drinking. Then I attempted to take my life. The people around me thought smoking was the problem. If I stopped, things would get better. That was what they could see. The surface behaviour, the habit, the thing that looked like the issue. They couldn't see what it was doing. They couldn't see why it was there. My psychologist could. She said it clearly, without judgment. This had been a survival adaptation. For years, it had been protection. It had allowed me to keep going when keeping going was the only available option. She wasn't approving of it. She wasn't dismissing the cost of it. She was seeing it accurately. And that accuracy, the simple act of being seen as I actually was rather than as the surface version of me, did something that no amount of pressure to stop ever had. I didn't know then what I know now about why that mattered. I know now that recognition, real recognition, without judgment or agenda, creates something that nothing else can. Space. Not the instruction to change, but the conditions in which change becomes possible. The smoking wasn't the problem. It was the solution to the problem. And the problem was this. There was internal experience I couldn't sit with. And the weed was the means of not being with it. I had no capacity to be with myself. No internal ground to stand on when things got hard. No ability to sit inside my own experience without needing to be somewhere else. The weed was providing internal ground I didn't have. It was doing a job. A real job. What nobody understood, what most people still don't understand when they look at someone else's coping mechanism, is that you cannot take a solution away from someone who still has the original problem. You are not helping them. You are removing the thing that is keeping them functional and leaving the wound that made it necessary. The shift, when it came, didn't come from deciding to stop. It came from something quieter and more internal. Over a long time, through a practice I was building without fully knowing I was building it, a way of turning toward my own experience rather than away from it, the internal ground began to change. That practice is what eventually became the observer method. I was developing capacity I hadn't had before. The ability to notice what was present in my body, in my feelings, in my thinking, without needing to escape it, without needing it to be different, without needing to be somewhere else. One day I ran out, and I just stopped. No decision, no struggle, no white-knuckling through withdrawal or replacing one thing with another. I simply didn't smoke anymore because I no longer needed what it had been providing. The solution had become unnecessary because the problem had changed. That's not a story about willpower. It's not a story about hitting a bottom or making a choice or wanting it badly enough. It's a story about internal capacity. What becomes possible when it builds and what remains impossible when it hasn't. The people who looked at the surface and saw a problem to be solved were not wrong to be concerned. They were wrong about what needed to change, and that difference between treating the symptom and understanding the function is the difference between subtraction and genuine shift. One saw me clearly. That was enough to begin. The observer method, TOM, is a framework for self-knowledge built from the inside. At its core is a simple shift, from managing your internal experience to witnessing it. Not fixing, not explaining, not escaping. Just seeing what is actually there. That capacity, to be with yourself without needing to be somewhere else, is what this method is built around.